Well, welcome to another edition of Burn and Learn, the Cigar Lifestyle Podcast. We're at After Dark Cigar Company in Orlando, Florida. We want to thank our gracious host, Mark, for allowing us to tape at his venue. Happy to be here, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to have a conversation with Josh Habursky, the CEO of PCA. So with that, Josh, I'll let you welcome, and I'd love for you to give a quick introduction on your background, both professionally and personally, and we'll go right into the conversation.
Really appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation and be at one of our iconic PCA member lounges. You know, they've been in business since 2022, but really ingratiated in PCA. We had a great conversation a year ago when I was in Orlando, and it's great to be back here for the first time seeing a new, relatively new member. I've been with the Premium Cigar Association for almost 6 years now. Took over as CEO a year and a half ago. Previously did the government affairs work federally. Still do that, so I wear many hats with the association nowadays. But really fortunate to kind of start in this as a consumer first of premium cigars, and now have the ability to do it as a career.
Gotcha. And so I think you mentioned that you were first down here about a year ago. Did you have an opportunity at that time to stop into the lounge here? Or?
Not this one. I did an event meet and greet at another lounge, and frequently I will travel, across the United States to different member lounges. We do some meet and greets. We do recordings of interviews like this.
Sure.
Sometimes I'll just, mystery shopper, stop in and see, the needs of our members, the challenges of running a brick and mortar retail business.
Sure.
And I'm proud every year that I've been with the association. I've done over 100 visits a year. That's kind of a set objective that I go into each year in new places, and I have Maine, Mississippi, and New Mexico coming up before the show.
Okay.
We basically said, your major metropolitan cities, your New Yorks, your Bostons, your DCs, your Chicagos, LA, they get a lot of attention, Vegas, New Orleans, but I want to go to other unique places and see the cigar culture. So, the latter part of the year, I'll be going to the Dakotas and Montanas, and often what people think of as flyover states have really great cigar culture. And I kind of want to dive into that and hear those stories. At the trade show and a lot of our larger events, I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off.
Sure.
I don't really have the ability to have, real personal conversations with folks. And every time that I've gone on the road, Mark and I had a 2-hour conversation last time I was here in the Orlando area.
Sure.
And that's how you build connections. That's how you really learn about your membership and create programs that matter to them the most.
Gotcha. I like that. I mean, what are a couple of things that you pick up, like once you have an opportunity to go to some of those lounges in smaller markets?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you may have learned by visiting those smaller markets that you may not have already known?
So a lot of it will be little regulations or legislation at the state level.
Sure.
A lot of cigar bar licensing. There's certain states that won't allow retail tobacconists to even have water, to provide free water. So there are very common sense pieces of legislation or provisions of legislation that we can help move along that helps the retailer or the lounge provide better services to their consumers. That's an example. Another example would be problems that we hear arising. And a lot of times it'll be 3 or 4 visits and you kind of see a pattern and you're like, this needs to be on the association's radar. Business insurance. A lot of businesses are having their insurance slip, fall, canceled because they're tobacco businesses. So I was on the Hill last week kind of drumming up saying, hey, this is a problem for our members. We need to fix this.
Yeah, I would say to your point, Josh, like even those businesses that are retail cigar adjacent are having trouble getting business insurance.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an e-commerce platform that focuses on buying and selling cigar accessories amongst aficionados, it was very challenging for me to get business insurance for an e-commerce platform, no brick and mortar. So yeah, I'm glad that's on the radar, because I probably talked to 10 or 12 insurance companies before I could get coverage, which is just crazy to me. That's just seems odd. But I think, one of the things that really shines through is I had an opportunity this year to go to the PCA, last year to go to the PCA show in New Orleans, my first opportunity, and I was completely overwhelmed by the great organization, the agenda, the way that it was organized, and the way that it was just well laid out. And I was overwhelmed at not only the number of folks that attended, but the number of folks that exhibited during the show. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to come back again this year. What are you thinking, or what's in store as you think about the upcoming show in April?
So bigger and better. We have certain things to improve. It was a very successful trade show. You're right, attendance, all the different factors coming together. We took some calculated risks. Mm-hmm. I'm fortunate to work with an incredible board of directors as well as staff, and setting these different events up. And you have the trade show itself, but then you have dozens of other smaller events going on, and we really wanted to make it a little bit of the fusion of the Super Bowl, the family reunion, and then also like a music festival. You have the energy. So we set the tone the first year with the governor lighting a cigar, because there was concerns that you could smoke in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of those things. And this year, I'm going and meeting with the governor the day before in Baton Rouge. That kind of shows the evolution and the magnitude of what the show means to the city of New Orleans.
Sure.
Now, I think when we go back to Las Vegas in 2027, we have to set the bar again and really capture the essence of Vegas and New Orleans. Play into the cultures of the city and blend those together with the cigar culture and the personalities that we have amongst our membership, retailer, manufacturer, and the like.
Yeah, no, I really have grown to love the cigar culture, both in New Orleans as well as Vegas. But as you know, for different reasons, right? They're very different markets, but I always have a really good time visiting lounges in either one of those cities. So look forward to going back to New Orleans this year, and look forward to Vegas next year.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where we know it's going to grow. The show's going to continue as we invest. We get more members. We had a 11.5% increase in retail membership last year.
Okay.
To me, membership growth is the most important factor, because there are new lounges coming up. We want to make sure that we are, as an association, servicing our members that have been around for 50 years or more, but also the newer members, and providing resources, education, training, different programs. I mean, we have affinity partnerships with major entities, tech entities that, sometimes tech entities are, much like the insurance companies, adverse to tobacco products. Sure. So we want to go in and negotiate terms that protect our members, provide discounts, provide value. One of the things that kind of was buried in the flurry of releases that we had last year was a partnership with Eventbrite. A lot of people are using Eventbrite platforms for small events, and we wanted to ensure that our members are able to use that tool, and any of our members that use it, they get a discount on that. So making the bottom line for our brick and mortar retailers improve and become better is always an objective of the PCA.
Yeah, no, I do like that. And again, as the owner of a venture that's adjacent to retail cigar smoking, certainly appreciate all of the efforts in that regard to protect our ability to use everyday services that most other businesses and sectors take for granted.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that work, and we're happy to help where we can to nest into those efforts.
We're all under a unique set of challenges. I mean, with social media platforms, restricting the content of of premium cigars. We did a release about that last week. Facebook and Instagram changing a lot of their terms and services. So, we have to create vehicles for the sustained cigar lifestyle,
Sure.
as well as new adult consumers to make a choice whether they want to enjoy this passion, this hobby. I can say from personal experience, I've met some of my closest friends through cigars. I've the relationships and the book Bowling Alone. People aren't going and play and bowling anymore. They're going to cigar lounges to have those deep personal conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And especially post-pandemic, where people were glued to their phones and online, you want that social atmosphere of places like this. And we really take the principle at PCA that when you're 21 years of age or older, you should be able to make a concerted decision whether to enjoy a cigar or not.
Sure.
And it
Absolutely.
drives down to the businesses too. If you are somebody that doesn't like smoke, there's a plain solution to it. Don't go to a cigar lounge.
Right. Absolutely. I'm with you on there. I'm with you on that. I again, we're certainly happy, and we're certainly supportive of the PCA's efforts, right? Because again, there are things that are unique to this sector that we have challenges with.
Yeah.
Right. So having a very strong advocate and supporter leading the charge against some of these challenges is very helpful and very encouraging.
And
right. We've got somebody to work on things on our behalf, which is very helpful.
And I think with some of that success, we've seen a little bit of a renaissance with a lot of other corporate brands wanting to work with the cigar industry. They've always been there in existence. Sometimes you've had, lounges and entrepreneurs that have really brokered their own partnerships as kind of one-offs. We're trying to make more of a concerted effort in looking at adjacent businesses, as you referenced, the duty-free side of things, the chocolates, the coffees, the spirits. You're going to see a little bit of that at the trade show this year.
Sure.
Obviously, we have a limited footprint of space. We are going to sell out for the second consecutive year of trade show floor space. We have more demand. We've actually had to cut some of the space of the PCA occupies at the show in order to accommodate that. And to me, that's a telling sign of the strength of not only the association, but of the industry at large. And that's what we want to see is we don't want to have it lopsided where the association's doing very well financially, but you have the manufacturers and retailers hurting. And unfortunately, if you look at the import numbers, the metrics of lounge closures to new openings, it's a very positive atmosphere that we've enjoyed for the last 3 or 4 years, where people can have new opportunities and choices. And I myself, as somebody who travels a lot, even outside of the auspices of PCA, one of the first things that I do is I'm looking for PCA members or lounges that I can go and visit. I'm a cigar tourist. If I was coming to Orlando, even without the interview or anything to do with my day job, I would be seeking out places like this where I can meet new people.
Sure. Yeah, I think I like that. That resonates with me for a number of reasons. I mean, the whole concept and the reason that I created the podcast and very purposefully named it Burn and Learn is I certainly want to take an opportunity with a great guest to enjoy a great cigar and talk about that cigar. But just as importantly, the learn piece is I want to draw out Josh's story. I want to draw out and learn from him and share those learnings with the audience, right? And so I very purposely came up with the concept of Burn and Learn for the podcast for that reason. And so that's really what we're focused on.
Yeah.
Building community and using the cigar not as the conversation, but as the vehicle to have very robust conversations about a myriad of topics that are important to our everyday lives.
Yeah, and education has been a pillar of my priorities going into this, and I appreciate the Burn and Learn concept. We offer our members services in the education space, Tobacconist University, the Cigar Academy, but we did something new this past year in brokering a partnership with FIU.
Mm-hmm.
We had our first luxury cigar marketing course, which was a master class. It's sold out.
Nice.
So we've renewed that late October 2026. We'll be offering that course again. And I am in talks with 2 other universities for different programs that are connected. One of the things that I think we needed to do, and I wish we did this 10 years ago and not now, is to professionalize the industry a little bit more. It's great to have hobbyists and friends that are, providing a space, but you also want to make sure that it's sustainable for the long run. So basic business, basic marketing, and even the operations side of factory management. So we're not only having conversations with universities in the United States, but we're having talks with ones in places like Nicaragua, Honduras, Dominican Republic, to provide those skills and trainings. I think that one of the things, and I renewed my contract with the association for 5 years, and I hope to be there a lot longer.
Sure.
Than 5 years. But when I look back, I want to say I advanced the ball forward in professionalizing the association and the industry, where people are proud to be tobacconists. They're proud to work in cigar factories, that it isn't the scarlet tea that is vilified, that this is an honorable profession that brings people together and creates those social connections unlike any other business out there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, you hit on it a little earlier. I mean, it's all about choices, right? We choose to be involved in this sector. We choose to enjoy a premium cigar. We choose to come to Mark's Lounge because we know it's a great place to meet great people and enjoy a great conversation. But folks that don't necessarily have an interest in that, they have a choice not to do that,
Yep.
right? So all we ask is that our rights to do that aren't impinged upon at the behest of folks that don't want to do it,
Yeah.
right? And so, I think the work that the PCA does and your personal commitment to that work does not go unnoticed.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I think looking at where we want to go with the association is creating those vehicles, creating those new programs, and making sure that we have a long-term impact. We have short-term goals like the trade show. We have to execute
Sure.
the baseline, but then we can think a bit longer term of what do we want the association and the industry to look like in the next 5 or 10 years. So one of the other things on the education front, we commissioned a book. This will be the 3rd in the series of Around the World in 80 Cigars. Nick Hammond, a British author, he's actually in Nicaragua right now doing some of the interviews for the first few chapters.
Okay.
We are highlighting 5 manufacturers and 10 retail lounges, as well as a chapter on the trade show, the New Orleans trade show. And then also he'll be going out to Dubai with us for the World Cigar Show, which was another new initiative that we brought to market in 2025.
Gotcha. Perfect. So no, I absolutely enjoy the information in having this chat with you. How did your passion and your interest in cigars start?
So I originally wanted to be a political science professor. I love to talk. I love education, as you can tell from our conversation. I had a very instrumental undergraduate professor at Washington and Jefferson College just outside of Pittsburgh that had the Winston Churchill Society, where we sat around as a group and smoked cigars and talked politics. And moved to DC to get my graduate work completed at Georgetown. I originally was signed up to go to the University of Georgia to get my PhD in political science, but went for a trip to accept an award for political science in DC, and I kind of changed things. I went to Shelley's back room.
Nice.
And said, you know what, this is where I need to be. I want to play in the major leagues. DC's the major leagues for politics. And so Shelley's in DC, gravitated there. had a career in lobbying for different causes. Started with motorcycles, did banks for a while,
Yeah.
and then had the opportunity to get my dream job as the Director of Government Affairs for the PCA, IPCPR at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, waited it out through the challenging times of the pandemic, and some restructuring with the association, and got the nod to be the kind of the ambassador for the U.S. cigar industry. And that's how I look at my role, is that I need to spread the message of brick and mortar tobacconists and premium cigars, not only here in the States but in the world. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with it, but I could not ask for another job that is more fulfilling to me, in all that encompass my career. I get to do a little bit of the politics on the lobbying and advocacy side, but also, I think the best part of the job is the ability to meet people.
Sure. I like it. I mean, I kind of like you, started, grew up in Northern Virginia, went to Georgetown undergrad. In my first role out of undergrad, I joined a corporate lending group in a bank up in downtown Baltimore. And so very young banker, newly minted right out of the training program. And they put me in a lending group with very seasoned lenders. And so very quickly, cigars and bourbon became the thing, right? So I think my first cigar was in probably 96. And because I was with more experienced bankers, I think I started straight at Davidoff's, right? I think my first cigar in 96 was a Davidoff Grand Cru.
So I didn't have the nice stuff in undergrad. I started out a little and worked my way up.
The only reason I had the nice stuff is because my coworkers were buying, right? I was just a kid and didn't know one from the other, but they were quite experienced and kind of led me down that path. And so that's when I started. But I would say probably for the past 10 or 15 years, been a more dedicated aficionado. And as I traveled for work in banking and in tech, much like you, I mean, I go to a couple of websites to find out where the local shops are.
Yep.
And because I want to get that local experience, right? I want to have those conversations with local folks. I want to get to know them better. I want to know what they like to smoke, and why. And I just really enjoy having those conversations.
And I think pro tip on having gone to so many lounges, one thing that people kind of overlook is the house blend of cigars. Always get the house blend. Always get the house blend. Get your tried and true cigar. Try something new. Support the humidor. But like Mark, I had when we were setting up the house blend, incredible cigar. Beautiful. So like a lot of people will go in and they kind of stick to a brand, or they'll try something because they read it in one of the cigar media. I'm not discounting that at all, but I'm saying always get the house blend, because you're going to be pleasantly surprised. An affordable cigar in a lot of places across the country, and that's something that I'll usually, when I find one, I'll go back and say, hey, I want to get a box, or I want to get a bundle, and share it with friends. I think one of the other cool things of being a cigar enthusiast is trying so many different cigars.
Sure.
And like, I don't want them for myself. Like, I get a lot of cigars gifted from the titans of the industry, the manufacturers, retailers. I smoke them or I share them. My humidor has the most basic stuff just so that I can smoke a cigar on my walk to and from work. But I enjoy and savor the cigar. I think it may have been Carlito Fuente who said, you don't smoke a cigar, you savor a cigar.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I've been trying to say you don't smoke cigars, but I can't, I trip up over that all the time. You savor cigars, but you savor the moment too, who you're enjoying the cigar with, and the atmosphere.
I love that for a number of reasons, but I think the reason why I love it the most is when you said smoking a cigar on your walk into the office.
Yes.
Like, who wouldn't love to be able to do that on the way to work and on the way home?
Well, and then
That's pretty
also
cool.
when I'm at work too, especially, and it's comical because
now you're just killing me now.
Well, it gets comical when I'm on these, most of the meetings nowadays are Zoom when you're dealing with agencies or regulators. So I'm on these Zooms puffing away like Winston Churchill, and I got all the anti-tobacco groups on there. You can see the smirks and the smugness in their face as I'm like blowing smoke in the camera. Like I'm just messing with them a little bit. But you got to be a little bit of a character.
I absolutely love that.
If I had this job and was plain Jane all the time, I would not be fulfilling the blessing of having this job. Right. You have to have a little bit of a character, personality, and I embrace it. Like I want to be unique in DC, and fortunately, over the past 6 years, I've built a reputation as the cigar guy. I'm not in any photos without a cigar. I'm most events, if I can't smoke in there, I'm walking in with a cigar, or it's my pocket square. I've had some suits designed with labels of cigars inside. So you want to be on brand constantly.
I love that.
And letting people know, like, hey, this is, cigars are a good thing.
I like it. So what do you think? I think you said you've been with PCA for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
How has the industry evolved over that 6-year period? What have you seen change, either for the better or for the worse? What changes have you seen?
So it ebbs and flows.
Okay.
Like, I think you have upturns and downturns. Some of it's the market, but you also have, definitions and infighting within the industry. That happens frequently. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a difference of opinion. I will say right now, present time, everyone is working together on a lot of issues, and like there might be 5% of stuff that there's 3 trade groups that really focus on cigars, and within those 3 trade groups, we all get along, we all have communication, and we don't let the 5% where we disagree ruin the objectives that we all have or the core mission of protecting cigars.
Gotcha. I like that. And then like say coming out of COVID, as you on your travels both domestically and internationally, what have you seen differently at lounges through your visits, say coming out of COVID, that's kind of new and different from prior to COVID?
So I think COVID, you had a lot of people enter the market, about 300,000 new consumers of premium cigars, which was good for everyone.
Sure.
But when you had the strictest states, you could only buy your cigars online. You saw more brick and mortar establish an online presence. So the accessibility of cigars, or the convenience motivation of being able to order, a lot of the traditional brick and mortars rose to the occasion and innovated to meet that market challenge.
Sure.
But also within the lounges themselves, to retain that competitive advantage of the atmosphere, a lot of the lounges have focused on hospitality, adding in elements of coffee, of desserts, of soft drinks, or pairing classes, or even education within the lounge. So they've really bolstered programming across the board. If you go to Europe to a lot of cigar lounges, it's different than most places in the States.
Sure.
You have the full suit. Some people are in tuxedos, wearing white gloves, cutting your cigar,
Sure.
almost lighting it for you. You don't see that too often in the States, but you do see more focus on service. And some of those elements have come on over. For the longest time, the UK market was the most refined, but a lot of the folks from the UK in the service industry and the hospitality went over to Dubai and places like Doha and Qatar. So when we were there for the World Cigar Show, I was amazed by that market and really the ability to smoke in restaurants and
Wow.
hotels. Florida is by far the best state in terms of availability of
Mm-hmm.
where you can smoke, not just within lounges, but when you buy a cigar and at a lounge and you want to have a nightcap cigar, a lot of the hotels, even some of the corporate structures in other states that are completely non-smoking, they will have a small bench where you can enjoy that nightcap cigar.
I like it. I like it that the whole focus on service. I've noticed that as well. About a year ago, I spent 5 days in London, just touring the lounges in London.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that almost immediately struck me was not only did you have beautiful lounges aesthetically, but you had wonderfully curated humidors, and the service was just impeccable.
Yeah.
Right. Typically, the folks working in those lounges, like to your point, well suited, cutting and lighting for you, bringing you drinks. So that was a great experience, and we went to some of the great lounges. I missed a couple, which just means I have to get back there sooner rather than later.
And I think the hybrid model, we can learn from what they're doing over in other parts of the world, but that social aspect of things is not as prevalent over there. So
Sure.
like just not knowing anybody, it's more challenging or difficult as somebody just to sit down and have that conversation in a lot of those places. So, that's why some of this cross-country or cross-continent dialogue is important about, hey, what can we learn from you? What can you learn from us to build a better experience or atmosphere for anyone?
Yeah, and I like that, Josh. And one of the things that I have noticed, because I follow PCA's website and their activities pretty closely, and I did notice throughout 2025 there's a heightened focus on international markets. Yeah. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, kind of the rationale, the reason, and what you hope to gain from those endeavors?
Absolutely. So, we started the partnerships with other trade shows like Intertobac or festivals like Puro Sabor and Pro Cigar in the cigar producing countries. We've done that and expanded those partnerships with Puro Sabor and Pro Cigar this year. And the United States is the largest market for premium cigars.
Sure.
We have a lot of interested consumers. We have great retailers. We have all the mechanics to be the leader in the world in the premium cigar space.
Sure.
And, that connection, especially with the cigar producing countries, was missing. And I think learning and establishing those connections was important for the association as we look to, export some of our own programming as well as import some of the ideas. And,
Sure.
From an advocacy perspective, the bad policy or good policy doesn't have a border. If the stuff that we saw with generational smoking bans started in New Zealand and Australia, moved to Europe, and now you see it in parts of Massachusetts. California introduced it. Tennessee has introduced it. Hawaii. So I would rather fight those battles not in the United States from the onset.
Sure.
Share the data, the research, the winning methods that we had through our successful court victories against the Food and Drug Administration, and mount a defense elsewhere, and really help those folks. There's some challenges in Belgium and the EU right now. I was over in November to Strasbourg, the European Parliament, and shockingly, I went there and I had a great meeting with a MEP, and was with ECMA, the European Cigar Manufacturer Group. And so we finished the meeting and we go around there, like, go down to the smoking lounge in Parliament. They had a smoking lounge in Parliament. Everyone's there. There's a bar next to it, but within the Parliament complex, I was amazed that they had a smoking lounge. Now, everyone's chiefing cigarettes, and then I'm in there just 3 cigars back to back, smiling at everyone, waving. The Americans have arrived,
Love that. Love that. So your thoughts are, we take lessons internationally, build knowledge and learnings to help us reduce the legislative risk here in the States.
Absolutely.
Like that.
That's one of the objectives.
Mm-hmm.
And then, growing the market. The Middle East and doing the World Cigar Show, that was the largest growing market for premium cigars outside of the States. We were able to work with a British company to do a partnership. We had 1,700 attendees in our first iteration and 3 sold out evening events. Next year, it's going to be bigger and better. I think we're going to actually do a couple cigar dinners in Abu Dhabi and Doha as kind of leading up or even at the conclusion of the event. But we're seeing a lot of people wanting to do more events that are global. We've had proposals from folks in Cyprus, proposals in Greece, Hong Kong. So it's really amazing to see once you kind of take that risk. And I had detractors. They're like, what are they doing in Dubai?
Yeah.
And I think after the first year, they're like, okay, this makes sense.
Makes sense.
It was profitable. I'm able to use the resources that we made from the World Cigar Show in Dubai and apply them to direct benefits to brick and mortar retailers here in the United States, but also create a new vertical or a new forum where premium cigars can be discussed. And you had people all around the world coming to that. Africa, people travel, internationally for a lot of our programs. We had a gentleman for the FIU course that came from Hungary to take that class. So, it really showcases that we want to grow not only domestically but internationally, but we're not competing against anyone. I don't want to do something that conflicts with any of our partners out there. I'm looking for the win-win that will elevate and all boats will rise.
No, I like that. I mean, I also think about, just going back to kind of my undergraduate finance training around the benefits of international markets.
Yeah.
Right? So beautiful that we're seeing 11 or 12% growth here in the States, but is there a way to build upon that by opening up global markets for U.S.-based companies to sell internationally, right?
Well, and some of those, a direct benefit of having those international conversations was, a couple months ago when we were, the administration was considering tariffs, and getting the data from the cigar producing countries to say, look, we're not the problem. You need to make some considerations around this when they were looking at, for instance, 100% tariff, what that would do to the global market. And I think this administration understands that, the U.S. is the first in retail of premium cigars, and we want to retain that.
Sure.
I don't want to lose that to another country. We're competitive in that sense.
Absolutely.
That's a healthy competition,
Sure.
where, we want to work together. We hope the markets globally do well and improve. But I can tell you, looking at certain countries like our neighbors up north, I don't want to have plain packaging. I don't want to have, no places in a major city like Toronto where you can smoke indoors.
Sure.
Like, that's something that is a cautionary tale for us as we looked at some of the international markets that have taken these draconian stances on all tobacco products, including premium cigars.
Sure. Like I have heard, to your point, I'm certainly, I have not been to Toronto, but it's on my list. But I've heard that there are no cigar lounges.
It's a great city, great food culture,
Sure.
and it could probably support 20 different lounges
Yeah.
with the number of people there. But like, you walk down the street smoking a cigar, and there's a couple good shops there. When I visit Toronto, I'm originally from Erie, Pennsylvania, which isn't all that far from Toronto. So I'll go there probably once a year, go to a shop. But even when I'm walking down the street smoking a cigar, you would think I was a social pariah. You're getting the dirty looks. I kind of just, I like that. When I get the dirty look, I'm just like, all right, I'm doing my job.
Doing your job.
Yep.
I like it. You mentioned tariffs, Josh. What do you think, like, through 2025 and as we head in full steam into 2026? Have we seen an impact on the tariff conversation and the impact? Have there been any economic or financial impacts?
Yeah, there's been some, obviously some price increases
Sure.
with manufacturers and retailers to account for the 10% in Honduras and Dominican Republic and 18% in Nicaragua. One of the things that we've emphasized with the USTR and the federal government is that stability. We don't want the fluctuations and the risks of another 50% tariff or 100% tariff. prices of cigars in most places are still manageable at the consumer level.
Sure.
We don't want, look, we want the bottom line of the business owners to be top of mind. So, that's always a conversation. We commissioned a study, though, on tariffs as well as taxation on the cigar market in the United States. So we have very good data, and this administration gets it. They take the time, they meet with interest groups, they meet with associations. I've already been to the White House 3 times last year.
Okay.
Under the previous 4 years, we were never invited to the White House. The first administration, the Trump administration, I think we were there 12 times. They had a working group on premium cigars. So the access and the conversations, the ability to present well-reasoned arguments and facts and figures is there.
Okay.
It will be a challenge. Tariffs across the board. I think the accessories, some of the accessories that are made in Europe or Asia, those are concerning. Because we're not the focal point. When you're looking at global tariff policy, a lot of times we're just caught up in it.
Right.
So it's hard to get a carve out or an exemption for a product category that no one's really thinking of in that context.
Sure.
But the effects when it's done in the most aggressive way could be the most negative for not only the market here in the States, but also in the producing countries. And that's something that's tied to geopolitics, that's tied to immigration. So there's a lot of national security in some sense. So it's a lot bigger than us. So we have to be very vigilant in any of those discussions.
Gotcha. No, this all makes sense. And one of the things that I've seen, one of the reasons why I really enjoy the cigar industry is that there are just so many choices, right? Like, regardless of what your palate is or how your palate is evolving, there is an offering today and there'll be another offering tomorrow, and you just have plenty of really good choice. And what I've seen is, the big manufacturers have done well, but you're seeing some entree into the market by some boutiques, right? So the thought comes to mind, are the boutique cigar manufacturers, are they cannibalizing sales from the larger manufacturers, or are all the markets just generally increasing?
I think in a lot of instances, all the markets are increasing.
Gotcha.
Last year we had 70 brand new exhibitors between cigars and accessories at the show for the first time.
Okay. Wow.
This year we've retained most of them,
Mm-hmm.
and we've added on over a dozen so far. Now a lot of times this last month or 6 weeks we get even more. So I like to be presenting at the trade show saying we have 20 new companies coming into the market this year. That's another sign of growth. I think things like California and their unflavored tobacco listing and the fees associated with that constrict the market in a very unfair way, where it creates unnecessary burdens and barriers of entry for boutique companies. If you have to get every SKU, every size approved with a $300 application fee, that is a tough thing for somebody just starting out.
Absolutely.
That has only 3 or 5 different sizes. They're trying to enter this passion of theirs, and so we want to be vigilant of that. Hopefully these California-like policies don't spread to other states. That's a concern. I think I get asked the question, what keeps you up at night? That is something that keeps me up at night, because California, once you think that they've gone to the furthest point, they then take it even further.
Right.
Make no mistake, there are legislators and even voters and constituents in California that want to see the complete prohibition of tobacco and cigars.
Gotcha. So we're obviously focused on addressing that risk, but at the same time trying to reduce the possibility of that mindset spreading to other states and localities.
It's defense and containment. I mean, you have to have the litigation side as one piece, the advocacy side. We've also been encouraging, and I think we're at 8 now, elected officials that are current tobacconists or in the cigar industry. That's something that I really encourage folks to consider. If your calling is public service, become a state rep or a state senator so that you can have a voice in determining the future of this type of policy. And also, it really takes 3 to 5 really invested, and I don't mean invested in the financial sense, time and willingness to participate, 3 to 5 retailers in every state to really push the ball forward or play defense.
Sure.
And I think in a lot of the most challenging states, we haven't had the consumers, the manufacturers, or the retailers engaged to the fullest extent possible. And, we are stewards of the industry. I'm a steward of the industry. I have to establish the framework for a lot of things.
Sure.
But, I think Klaus had said, music, I forget the quote, but like army or a diplomacy without an army is like music without instruments. That's the exact quote.
Gotcha. Absolutely.
And that is very applicable to our scenario in the sense that the association can only do so much. If we don't have the backing of our membership, if we don't have the backing of their consumers, it's going to be a very tough hill to climb.
I like that. I would agree with that, and I do like your point that folks that are involved in the legislative process, that are actively involved in the industry, has to be helpful, right? It's not only do they have their voice, but they have the direct market and the direct experience to be able to speak intelligently when they're crafting and thinking about and negotiating those policies.
We've set up a lot of cigar caucuses at the state level where legislators enjoy the product. We have one at the federal level, 60 members of Congress.
Sure.
So that's a great education forum, especially in the absence of a tobacconist being an elected official. That's a quarterly time where people can hear a story. And we've brought some of the manufacturers and retailers to kind of walk through some of the issues that our industry faces for these folks, and seeing it firsthand and getting them to recognize. I remember you asked the question about shifts since I started versus now. When I first started, there were a lot of members of Congress that thought cigars were a big cigarette. And I think the education push and the outreach, I mentioned, and I'm a big metrics guy looking at numbers.
Sure.
Typically, I'll do 300 congressional meetings every year, and pounding the pavement and getting those folks, even the offices that I know that aren't going to vote with us, they're not going to be helpful, just providing the framework of the basics, like, hey, this is a small business, there's constituents in your state that are small business owners, people like this doesn't have the frequency of use, youth aren't smoking premium cigars, those little nuggets of knowledge, and getting them to recognize that can have an impact in the long run.
Sure. Again, to one of your earlier points, knowledge is power, right? So to your point, maybe they're not at the point where they're voting in the way in which we want them to vote, but giving them that information, right? Like to your point, there are probably young kids that are vaping and maybe cigarettes, and you don't see that typically with cigar smoke, right?
Absolutely.
So
and
it's important to make certain that people know that.
And sometimes those legislators would do a press release or do a speech against and include cigars. Maybe they're not doing that. Even though they're not taking the vote in the right way that we would hope they would, they're still not going as aggressively, especially at premium cigars, as they've done in the past.
Sure.
Because again, we're unfortunately lumped together in a lot of these things with other categories in an unfortunate way.
No, I like it. I mean, this has all been very helpful. The information's been great. The conversation's been great. I really, again, welcome the opportunity to continue to have these conversations. And as we think about all the work that you've done and you've dedicated, your professional career to, and hopefully continue to do that going forward. What are some of the things that we see potentially over the next several years in the industry that we should be preparing for now?
I think the ability to smoke will always be a challenge indoors, also with coordinate businesses. Another thing that we launched last year was the Alliance program,
Mm-hmm.
to really get golf courses, gun clubs, restaurants that have outdoor patios involved, because it might not be their primary revenue driver, but they're still building a better business with the complement of cigars. I'm trying to get them more involved because there's a lot of initiatives, especially we see it abroad, in the UK and Belgium, they actually passed it where you can't smoke at restaurants anymore or outdoor terraces. And that is being examined a lot.
Sure.
Generational smoking bans, I referenced that before. That's another crazy policy that, would ban the ability of consumers to purchase tobacco products if they were born after a certain date. It's a phase out of tobacco. But, and I said it on a interview that I did last week, that I don't see that happening at the federal level, which means the public policy objectives of it doesn't work. You're just shifting buying patterns and you're shifting tax resources to other markets that are open. Massachusetts is so restrictive, the beneficiary of that is New Hampshire. So Georgia's taxes are too high. The beneficiary is Northern Florida. People are going to find a way to enjoy, especially if they're a true cigar aficionado, a true enthusiast, to enjoy their product or to enjoy their passion and find a way to get the products in a reasonable way.
Sure. That makes sense. I like that. I think, again, a lot of really good work. And I think, I'm certainly speaking as an aficionado, but again, the work that's being done is applauded. Certainly support that. And, the Alliance program, I'm a member of that. And so anything that folks can do that are involved in the industry are happy to nest into and support the PCA so that you can continue to be on the forefront of some of these things, which is really good.
I appreciate what you all do with the Burn and Learn and, the podcast, the interviews, giving a platform. I wanted to come in to the association and be the most accessible executive director / CEO. And I also never say no to an interview because it's an opportunity to engage with people, larger audiences, different people. So I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you and share it with your viewers so that they may know a little bit more about the inner workings of the PCA. And when they see it referenced or they see the PCA sticker on a cigar for one of our exclusives, or they see the PCA sticker in a lounge that they visit, they know that there's an entity behind it really supporting the right to do what we're doing right now.
No, I like it. So for you, Josh, what's the future hold for you? Where do you see yourself, say 5 years out?
Hopefully renewing my contract with the Premium Cigar Association.
I like that.
I love this place. I tell people, and I've had folks say, hey, come run this association or take this job. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. I have the job that I want. I tell people I will never have a cooler job than this. I'm not chasing money. I think that this is the right place. I wouldn't be as effective as an advocate or as the leader of the association if I wasn't behind a cause 150%. And, I'm protecting my ability to do what I'm doing right now just as much as I am for, the consumer in Meridian, Idaho, or, upstate New York, or the brick and mortar tobacconists in Pennsylvania or Florida. So I'm part of the community as much as I am leading the PCA.
No, I like it. Again, what I can say is, I'm grateful to be able to have this conversation with you. You were very gracious, your staff, Lisa, Maria. As soon as I reached out to have this conversation, within a day, we had gotten the preliminary logistics set up. So absolutely appreciate that, and look forward to continued partnership. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Mark for allowing us to have this conversation at this beautiful lounge, After Dark Cigar Lounge in Orlando. So thanks, Mark, for the opportunity to do that. With that, I think we'll wrap. Again, absolutely appreciate the conversation. Look forward to continued conversations. We'd love to have you back on, and look forward to the planning and look forward to attending PCA in April. So,
yeah, we look forward to hosting you. Anything that we can do to make sure your experience is what it was this past year. We set the bar high, and same thing with Mark and the After Dark folks. We want to make sure that we deliver again on a show, and we're already planning for 2027. The funny thing is, in your question about the 5 years, the only other answer that I would add to it is in 2033, it will be the 100th anniversary of the Premium Cigar Association. And, I've gone to Pro Cigar in Santiago, Dominican Republic, which is February. They have their big festival, and they host this white party at their national monument.
Mm-hmm.
I am hosting a party on the 100th anniversary at the Washington Monument, outdoor white party for the cigar industry.
Beautiful.
So I'm already planning on that. That's one of those things where you keep repeating and it manifests itself.
Absolutely.
I told our board, I'm like, I'm going to have to raise $1 million for this party. It's going to be a who's who. Everybody in advocacy, that's a cigar enthusiast, celebrities are going to ask to be on the guest list. But that shows kind of the mentality that we're bringing to the industry. It's an aggressive, kind of new aged approach of let's reach for the stars. Let's not accept 50%. Let's go for 100%. I tell people that I don't want to get on base. I don't want to, bunt and get on base. I don't want to get a second on second base. I want to hit home run.
Let's swing for the fences.
Swing for the fences. Yeah. Designated hitter.
I like it. And by planning now for 2033, makes it a reality when that comes around. So I like that. Certainly look forward to that. But with that, we'll go ahead and wrap. Again, appreciate the hospitality, Mark. Appreciate, Josh, the opportunity to have this chat. And, from us at Burn and Learn, we look forward to having additional and new episodes coming out. We just launched a new dedicated website for the podcast. So if you want to check that out, you can go to burnandlearnpodcast.com. We just launched the website today, so hopefully you'll go there and be able to enjoy that. For Stogie Hub, which is the online platform for aficionados to buy and sell accessories, you can check that website out at stogiehub.com. And then last, if you want to go to the Burn and Learn YouTube channel, you can find us on YouTube as well. And with that, we'll go ahead and thank our guests and our hosts once again, and we'll go ahead and wrap.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for lighting one up with us. That was Stephen Mann. And you've been listening to Burn and Learn, the Cigar Lifestyle Podcast. Brought to you by Stogie Hub. Elevate your cigar game. This episode was a full production by Access Studios. Access the power of video. Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel for exclusive content and hit that subscribe button to stay updated.